Well, here is our nightly countdown. Sorry, everyone, was a little late on the draw here. I'm actually going to, once again, this seems to be a little bit of a unintentional comedy routine here. Just getting the microphone working the way it should. Well, more to the point, the microphone seems to work just fine. I just, for some reason, can't quite get it to show up in the way that I want it to. Because I don't like the way the S's sound. They sound weird to me. And I am trying not to sound like a card-carrying member of the village people in the stereotypical sense. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I am not capable of being quite that fabulous, and so I don't think I'm doing anybody any good by having a similar speech pattern. So it seems like everything works okay. Now, some of you might be wondering, if we are live, why am I having a 5-minute counter when you can hear my pointless yammering in the background? Got something in my throat here. Well, the reason is I find it amusing, and eventually I'm going to polish this up somewhat. So that's sort of where my head is. And it also gives you an idea as to what kind of bullshit is going on, and do you really want to wait 3 minutes? I guess 2 minutes and 50 seconds now in order for us to get started. There are so many questions that beg for answers and never get them, and there are other questions that really don't need an answer and you get one anyway. Such is life. It seems like as things go on and as life progresses, it seems that there is an increasing amount of bullshit. The better things get in terms of technology and God knows what else, the more people seem to want to get offended by everything, no matter what it is. It kind of reminds me, I know Louis C.K. is apparently Mr. Cancel Culture and whatever. But although one of the things that people can't seem to do these days is separate the humor from actions. And to be honest, I mean, a lot of the time, anybody seems to be able to just make an accusation and just have it stick, regardless of whether there's any merit or not. And there was some celebrity who I've never heard of. He got arrested for making a false report. Go figure. But that is another topic for another day. Right now, we're just filling up time. I don't know. There just seems to be that this particular week, there seems to be a high level of stupid. There's always a high level of stupid, but it just seems that there is a sizable amount of it. And so I will just rant about it and say what I feel like. And I couldn't give 2 shits. Or 1 shit, or no shits. You, of all people, can figure out how many shits you choose to give. I have no shits to give, and therefore cannot offer said shits on credit. Well, we're down to 40 seconds. 40 seconds, ladies and gents. 40 seconds, ladies and gents. One of the things that I wish they would do with this counter is that, and I think I whined about this yesterday, I wish that there was a way internally that you could make it fade. Because you can't, with this little portable broadcast box here, one of the things that it doesn't do is it doesn't deal with animated transparencies, so you can't use a WebM file. Oh, we're down to 3, 2, 1. Yay! It's the beginning of the Short Bus Show. No, I shouldn't say that. All right, kids. Well, we are back. Thank you so much. This is, I guess, night 3 that I've been using this device so that I don't have to use OBS and I don't have to use my laptop and I don't have to use my switcher, and I don't have to do anything other than deal with my basically the two GoPros that go into this machine, which is very cool indeed. And one of the things that I am also pretty happy about is I had a chance to listen to the sound, and the sound is pretty good. There's a little bit of a gate, like they've applied a gate in the software in this device, and I don't really care for the fact that you can't turn it off. So depending on what I say, it if I taper off every so often, you'll hear the gate just kind of cut off, and that kind of annoys me. But it's very, very slight, and hopefully they will deal with that in a future update. And I was actually quite surprised that the Prophet 5, the audio, the analog to digital converters are actually quite good. So I'm not. I was worried that I was going to get a tinny sound coming out of the Prophet 5 when it went through this and once compression had its way with it. And it was actually remarkably close to what I was getting with the Blackmagic. So once and I have all my space back again. So that's pretty good. So I have a question for you, and I suppose it wouldn't be a broadcast of mine if I didn't bitch about something. I'm going to sound like an old fart here, and you know, but it has to be said, is it just me, or is everybody getting more and more and more fucked up? And by this I mean just the shit that people say. You go into an establishment and the stuff that people do and people say, it's like, do you not want customers? Do you not want most of the clients we have are pretty professional, and I really enjoy working with them. And obviously, a lot of our clients are very large, right? Fortune 500s, Crown Corporation, government, and that sort of thing. And they're generally very easy to deal with. They're long-established customers, and we deal with a lot of different types of companies. But every so often, and I'm seeing this more and more, even just 5 years ago, if any of you have ever done online dating, and I'm sure everybody has, I have, who hasn't, you know where you go on a date with somebody and then and basically you sit there and you get ghosted. I think I got ghosted once. And, where somebody just decides to fuck off and not show up because they decide that they're just not interested. This is happening now with everything else, and people just seem to think in a professional context that if you just ignore somebody, that they'll just go away. And this is something that I find unbelievable because, I run an ad agency and a production company, and every so often I have unpleasant conversations that I have to have. But I was always taught growing up to man up and deal with it. If there's something that you don't like, or there's an uncomfortable conversation that needs to be had, then you man up or woman up, or however you want to put it, and you deal with it. You go out and you sit there and you put it out on the table. This chicken shit thing of just, I'm not going to pick up the phone, I'm not going to answer, maybe it'll go away. I'm the kind of person that the more you do that, the more I'm going to push. If you don't want to do something, or you've changed your mind or whatever, that's fine. And this is when I'm buying stuff too. In fact, a lot of the time when I'm buying stuff, and sometimes big ticket electronic items, like the work that we do, the equipment is expensive and it's not cheap. And if I'm going to be going and spending 5 or 10 or 20 or grand or whatever on a piece of equipment, if you take my money, you need to be able to communicate with me. I'm not expecting you to basically wipe my ass and call it sunshine. But if I'm waiting a couple of weeks and you don't tell me what's going on with the item, and I call politely and say, hey, listen, this is Corey, the Chief Creative Officer for Skycron. We put in an order for X item, and we did a pre-order and for several weeks ago, and we just want an update. If you ignore me or you don't answer me, then I'm going to escalate it. And there have been cases where I will have a situation like this, and the person will actually have the nerve to get pissed off at me. Oh, we'll let you know and we'll let you know. No, you will let me know now. It is my money. It is my company. You will communicate with me because that is your job. I I don't mind if shit happens, okay? If you have a supply difficulty, just call me or email me and say, "Hey, listen, Mr. Carlick, I'm incredibly sorry. You should have had this by now. We are just having some just communicate. Just take 2 seconds and write an email or send me a or call me or leave me a voicemail or something. But don't make me chase you. And if you get me on the phone as a CEO and you start telling me how this is going to go, then I'm going to drop shit kick you off a cliff, so to speak. I am not going to allow you to dictate the terms. I dictate the terms. This is what people don't seem to understand. Oh, well, the customer's always right. The customer's always right when they're reasonable, and I've been on both sides of this fence. At Skycron, if we screw up, we take ownership of it, and we don't turn around and blame the client. And that's something that I see a lot of these days, and I find it infuriating. But if I'm buying a big ticket item and I have to call you a number of times just to get an update, understand, if you tell me that, if you just give me an update and say, we don't know right now, but we're on it, I'm not going to bug you. As long as I feel that there's some communication going. But if you act like you're going to ignore me, and then I turn around and I finally get you on the phone, and you're acting like a cornered dog, and then you have the nerve to get mad at me, I'm the CEO. I make the determinations. And when we're talking about a big ticket item, you need to be worried about lawyers, and you need to be worried about making people like me angry. And I'm a very reasonable person. It's just the stuff that people say, just the level of unprofessionalism is unbelievable. And by unprofessionalism, I'm not talking about what you see on Twitter. You see unprofessionalism, that's a phrase that you see all the time now. People just throw it out willy-nilly. Oh, well, you're unprofessional. Well, the way I see unprofessional used now is as a substitute for, I don't really like what you're telling me. So if you tell a customer or you tell somebody that if somebody's being a complete jerk and they turn around and say, the sky is green, but the sky is blue, and you say, well, no, I'm sorry, the sky is green. Then the person turns around and says, well, you're unprofessional. Well, what they mean to say is, I don't really like that you're telling me something I don't want to hear. That's not, when I talk about unprofessionalism, I'm not talking about just something I don't want to hear. I'm talking about, as a business owner, you have to deal with a lot of personality types. And most of our customers are very good, and I enjoy working with them. But as with anything in life, you're going to have people that are, not the good, not the good. You know what? Well, I'll just come right and say it. Pain in the ass. Some individuals are a pain in the ass, and they're trolls, and they're out to look for trouble. And when my definition of unprofessionalism is when I call and say, hey, listen, I want you to give me an update. And then you turn around and you get angry or you raise your voice at me, and because you haven't done your job, I consider that's what I consider unprofessional. What I consider unprofessional is when you fucked up and you're trying to chicken out, and then you're getting mad at me that I'm holding you accountable for something that you're supposed to do. That is unprofessional. That is unacceptable. And there's so many goddamn people out there that will put up with it, that you see it. It's everywhere. And you get this kind of patronizing, oh, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, sir. And then they're shocked, absolutely shocked, when you say, no, that is not acceptable. You either need to deal with this now, or
I'm going to have to get my legal team to deal with it because this is not a small ticket purchase. Well, I don't like your tone, sir. You don't like my tone. You're going to like my tone a whole fucking lot less once my lawyers are finished with you. This is a $20,000 product. It's been 3 months. Just tell me what the hell is going on. This behavior, this kind of childish. If any of you follow Louis Rossman, he has an awesome channel. He runs an Apple Fix-It shop in New York City, and he has a great term for this. He calls them cry bullies, and I think it's the perfect term for it, where you get people that are trying to cause a problem or they're trying to pull a fast one, and then when you actually turn around and you hold them accountable and say, no, you are being unreasonable. This is not the way this is going to go. This is unacceptable. Then they turn around and they play the victim and act like you're the big meanie. And then what they do is they project. They'll turn around and they'll accuse you of everything it is that they've been doing that caused you to have to get on the phone with them in the first place. And I keep seeing this, and it drives me crazy. And there's too many people that put up with it, and there's too many people that don't seem to know the difference between a fact and an opinion. If they don't like something, and you know what? Any of you that have watched it, I've ranted about this before, so I should probably get on another topic. But you get these people that they don't know the difference between a fact and an opinion. And you get these people, and they will go on the internet, and they'll read up on all this crap, and they think they're an expert. So everybody thinks they're a video editor. Everybody thinks they're an animator. Everybody thinks they're an expert in everything. And then you go to their YouTube channel, and they have a bunch of shitty, unprofessional stuff. I mean, this is a live stream, and it will get more professional as time goes on. But I'm doing this for fun. I enjoy doing it. But at the same time, I also run a professional television company. I have a show on the air. I have a show that's running on Fox and ABC and all that, and it's extremely polished, and the commercial work that we do is polished, and all you have to do is go and look on the YouTube channel. So I don't actually have to prove anything in terms of our production quality. I like everything to look as polished as possible, but it's nice to kind of be able to let your hair down and talk about things. But one of the things it's really driving me crazy is just this idea that people get pissed off because they're expected to do their job, and then they turn around and they try and bully you, and then they act like you're the bad guy. This is just something that's nuts. And it I mean, there's always been people like this, but I really started to notice this. It really started to become prevalent about 5-6 years ago. I started to see a little bit of it around 2013, 2014, and I started to see this kind of behavior. But it started to really kick in overdrive by about 2015, 2016 onwards. And that was about the time when the smartphone could actually do shit. I'm old enough to remember the original iPhone. And the original iPhone sucked. It couldn't do anything. I mean, I don't really like the new iPhone. I think it still sucks, but it sucks in a different way. At least the iPhone is the new iPhones, the current generation iPhones, and for the last couple of years, I'd say from the 3G onwards. And there's a bunch of you, probably 20-something-year-old kids out there going, "What's 3G? What is that?" Well, you know what? Google it. Look it up. Fucking look it up. You know, but the iPhones are pretty good now. But the very first one that they had that came out, it just sucked. And I remember going into an Apple store when they were new, when they had just come out in the Apple store. And in Canada, there was one Apple store, and it was at the I think it was the Yorkdale the Yorkdale shopping mall. There was an Apple store. We're going back about 10 years here. So if I've got them all wrong, sue me or shoot me or, grab my genitals and twist them into a bow or God knows what. But anyway, whatever the fucking mall was, there was the one Apple store, and it had absolutely awful service. And I went in there, and they had these, it looks pretty much the same as it does now. This kind of minimalist Minority Report Steven Spielbergian kind of futuristic, cloyingly perfect blah. Anyway, they had the iPhone there, and I picked it up, and it looked very sleek and it looked very cool. And I picked it up, and it's like the screen didn't really work very well. It was crashing all the time. Half of the shit didn't work. The dialer was completely at the fucking lunch. Like you do the dialer, and I'm like 1, 1, 1, 1. Dial 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Yeah, just But anyway, around the time that you could actually start to use a smartphone for something, this is when this behavior started. And now we have mobs on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram to some degree, and now TikTok, that will pretty much just gang up on people they don't like. And Dr. Jordan Peterson, a professor of clinical psychology at the University of Toronto, you go and you look him up, and people act like he's the devil incarnate. Whereas if you actually watch his videos, it's complete and total common sense. He's like, I don't have a problem with gender pronouns. I have a problem with the enforcement of a concept. And then when you watch people try to so-called debate him, they'll say, well, you're a bigot, and you're homophobic, and you're transphobic, and you're this phobic and that phobic. And he didn't say that. He said, I don't have a problem with somebody wanting to use their own gender pronouns. But don't use it as a weapon and then turn around and say, I said this and I said that, because he didn't. He didn't. I think one of the most dangerous phrases that you hear these days is, so what you're saying is. Anytime that somebody starts something with, so what you're saying is, then shit's about to go down. So what will happen is somebody will make, common sense seems to have gone completely out the window. And that's one of the things that drives me crazy. But yeah, so I mean, somebody will say, for example, you know what? I'm actually just going to put everything out on the table here. And I'm going to use an analogy. Let's say this is pretty much the analogy of what's going on here. If you go, let's say somebody goes into Starbucks. Okay. Let's say I go into Starbucks and I ask for a white chocolate frappuccino. I'm not a coffee drinker. I'm of the Dennis Leary mode of thinking, where coffee doesn't need a menu, it needs a cup. That's all it needs. But we'll use Starbucks or these fancy dancy fucking coffee shops as an example. So let's say I'm some social justice warrior, puffed out, undersexed, oversexed, or undersexed, dickhead. And I decide to go in Starbucks and order a white cappuccino or a white frappuccino. And then I go in, and when, the poor underpaid barista who's putting up with all kinds of bullshit, and then I go in and I go, well, this frappuccino's white. Well, yeah, it's white chocolate. Well, this is complete racism. I find this completely racist, and I find this completely, this is not only racist, this is discriminatory against, African American people and African, people of, African American descent, that, that this is a white colored beverage. And it's like, it's a fucking drink. It's a drink. There isn't a fucking picture of the Jim Crow era on the side of the fucking cup. It's just a beverage. And this is what a lot of this internet stuff has devolved to. So if, God forbid, you actually try and put some common sense and say, hey, listen, that's not what I said, they'll go, yes, you did. People like you are. That's another thing. People like you are. That's another phrase that you hear. And what they'll do is they'll take this emotion and they'll go, that's what they'll say, you said, and they'll paraphrase it in a completely incorrect way. and they'll do it loud and repeatedly, and they'll shout it again and again and again and again and again. And you watch TV, particularly in Canadian media, and people are siding with this shit. So what happens is you get all these individuals that are not interested in an intelligent political discourse, and they just want to go, I've decided that regardless of how intelligent of whatever it is you have to say, I am going to project my own me. There was a guy just the other day on Instagram, and there was a product for I guess it was a T-shirt. It's one of those ads that shows up in your stream, like in your Instagram stream or whatever you want to call it, Instagram feed. There we go, feed. So there was this ad for this T-shirt, and it was a T-shirt that basically was supposed to hide if you had a few extra pounds. And frankly, the shirt was not very flattering, and of course, there were a fair amount of comments, and a lot of the comments, I was actually expecting a lot more vitriol with these comments. I was not actually expecting there to be so little vitriol. Most of the comments were pretty neutral, but a lot of the comments that you saw on this were, instead of trying to hide it, it'd be better to go to the gym or better to get healthy, and I agree with that. And for those of you that don't know, I am actually uniquely qualified to speak on both sides of the coin. So those that knew me back in high school would know this, but those that have known me from after college and beyond wouldn't. So I actually used to be quite overweight. So I was, you could say I was the fat kid. So I was actually about 300 pounds. I was 300 pounds, and I'm about, I'd say I'm in the low, like I'd say when I'm 161, 162, and of that, I'm probably about 15, 16 pounds of that is muscle, at least based on the calipers anyway. So I've literally lost pretty much half of my body weight. Now I'm quite fit, and obviously I do a sports show, and a lot of what I do, I spend on, on health related stuff. And I keep kicking my stand here, so I apologize for that. So I've been on both sides. I've been on the side of being the fat kid, and I've been on the side of being the healthy, ripped, whatever you want to call it person, which is where I am now. So I know what it feels like when you're overweight and you're embarrassed about how you look, and it, and you're tired all the time, and you can kind of hear people making nasty comments about you when you go into a store. And I've been there. I know what that feels like. It feels terrible. It's awful. And then of course you end up getting fit, and then all the girls give you their numbers, and then you're like, oh well, now. But be that as it may, I've been on both sides of the fence. So anyway, there's this idiot that he was on this fucking crusade in this Instagram feed, in this stupid ad for this stupid fucking fat shirt. And this moron is going, well, he's going, anybody that's saying it's a good idea, it's a better idea to be healthy and, try and be active. He was going, oh, well, I don't like your fat phobic, fat phobic, discriminatory against overweight people. Just this soft social justice language, social justice warrior language that I can't fucking stand, because it's always made by people that aren't they. None of these individuals usually are ever people that are really into change. They just want to kind of bully somebody under the label of inclusiveness or whatever. But really what they're trying to do is they're trying to bully and submit somebody to their, to whatever. And I don't think a lot of the individuals that behave this way really believe what they're saying that they do. Because I think the people that really are activists are doing stuff that's constructive, and that they understand the way the human mind works, and that they know that you can't, if you poke somebody with a stick, all you're going to do is you're going to make them mad. And humans being what they are, they're just going to draw a firmer line in the sand. So anyway, this guy was arguing with everybody. Oh, well, nobody asked for your fat-centric or fat-phobic views or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And finally, I was like, you know what? I'm going to have at it. I know it's going to turn into a flame war, but you know what? Fuck it. Fuck it. So, because all these people were caught, and I just was like, okay, all right, whatever. So, and of course, this guy's profile is private and hidden, so you don't know anything about him. So you would expect that somebody that is that hung up about a shirt, like this guy is getting worked up over a fucking shirt, and the predatory gym and whatever practices and whatever bullshit tinfoil nonsense garbage crap that was coming out of his mouth, flowing to his hands and on the keyboard for the rest of us to have going through our bloodstream, was that he was just going on and on and on about this shirt. So I find that typically individuals like this hide their profile, don't know their background. So obviously they've gotten into a few tussles before, so they're probably already a troll. And you would also expect that it would be somebody that is maybe not feeling comfortable about where they are, which is fine. I've been there. I know what that feels like. But there's a constructive way of dealing with it, and there's a non-constructive way of dealing with it. And turning around and using this PC language, basically saying anybody that is suggesting that it's a good idea to go out and get healthy is fat phobic or whatever. I mean, this is just this kind of, everybody's beautiful horse shit. And it's true, but the thing is there's a point where it's hazardous for your health. And this is what happened to me. This is what happened to me. I was like, holy shit, I'm getting up and I'm tired all the time. It's just getting up and walking a little bit is a lot of effort. And so I don't really have patience for these types of people where they turn around and they where they turn around and they basically say anybody that isn't saying all these unhealthy things are good or is the only. It's unbelievable, and I don't really buy it. I think it's a pile of crap. So I figured, okay, this we're probably talking about a kind of an overweight guy, and I and he was deliberately withholding information, I'm sure. So I responded to the guy and I said, listen, nobody here has said anything mean or incorrect. There's a lot of places on the internet, believe me, where people flame. That is the default mode on Twitter. Oh, they don't agree, don't want to look at facts. Oh, well, you're a moron, or you're this, or you're that, or oh, I'm going to go into the one thing you misspelled, and therefore that must mean your IQ is approximately 2, and you live in a barn, and God knows what else. So yeah. So I just turned around to the guy and I said, listen, nobody here is suggesting that nobody here was really mean. But what they're saying is it is a good idea to, if you're really overweight, you might want to, it's a better idea to, it's a much better idea to deal with it. You don't even have to, you know what I mean? Like, you don't even need to do anything. I'm trying to put my knee up because my leg's stiff. I'll figure it out when I turn around. But yeah, you can just start with walking. You don't have to go out and run a 10K or a 15-mile marathon. You don't need to do that. Just go out and start moving. Just start moving. That's what I did. And then you lose a little bit, and then you go, hey, you get on the scale. The trick is you don't go on the scale for a while. And then you kind of look at it and go, hi, yeah, it's not so bad. I lost a couple of pounds. I wonder what else I can do. And then as you don't, it doesn't happen right away. And I always tell people, if you go out and do stuff with the mindset of losing weight, you won't. You're going to give up. Just go out and enjoy it. Just go out slow, Go for a walk around the block, walk for 20 minutes, walk for half an hour. It's something. It adds up. It really does. But this guy's like, well, I still think you're being toxic and whatever and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, listen, you think I lost all that weight from turning around and whining about it and acting like everybody is toxic and whatever and using the kind of stupid social justice language that you're using? No, I went out and I did it. The fact is that I was unhealthy. You know, I wasn't turning around and fat shaming anybody as he put it. And actually, to be honest, a lot of the other comments were quite supportive. But this guy's like, no matter what you say, I'm like, look, dude, like you gotta lay off on it. You need to let this go. Nobody's being mean, and it really is unhealthy, and it causes all kinds of health problems. Nobody's saying go out and run a marathon. Just take care of your health a little bit, and you'll feel a lot better. And that's true. That's true. Look at me. It happened to me. It wasn't even, we're not even talking people that used to be really big, and then they turn around once they become thin and ripped and fit, and then they turn around and then they act. That's the other kind of person that I can't stand, where you get somebody that was really big, that used to be really big, like I used to be really big, and then they get thin and fit like I did, and then they turn around and they act like they've always been that way, or that they turn around and they act that anybody that is still like that and didn't do a transformation like they did is somehow a disgusting pig or whatever, and they're really mean about it. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that attitude either, right? Like that kind of, oh, holier than thou. It's like, oh, well, now suddenly I've seen the light. It's like a lot of these folks that now say that they've seen God. Not the legit ones. The ones that turn around and like they have a life and they've done all these awful things, and then suddenly they've seen God. And because now that they've seen God, now they can turn around and they can start judging everybody else. Oh, well, God would not be pleased with this that you're doing, and God would not be pleased with that you're doing, and I've seen the light, and now I'm holier than thou. What the fuck were you doing for the last 20 years? Gang banging pimps and fucking Jane and Finch. You think you're a fucking saint? Fuck off. You know what I mean? Like I don't have a lot of patience for that. Finding religion, okay. Being supportive and wanting to make a change with your life, absolutely. That's fantastic. Trying to make a positive change because you have managed to see the light either in religion or health or whatever, that's great. That's positive, and whatever you can do. And that's what I try to do with the show, with Go Nitro. But when you have attained a goal and then you turn around and you try to make other people feel like shit that haven't actually achieved that goal yet, that's not cool. That's not cool. I don't care for that. And the funny thing is, as soon as I turned around and said that, I guess the guy went and looked at the profile and was like, "Holy shit!" And he goes, "Well, I'm 180 and I'm 6'2", and I've been practicing Muay Thai and training for years and years and years, and so nice try." It's like, oh, okay, so you turn around and you're apparently this ripped 6'2" Muay Thai master, and which you conveniently left out. Your profile conveniently doesn't say anything about it, and now suddenly you're a crusader, for the fat or whatever. Like, fuck off. The guy's probably like 300 pounds, sitting on his ass, jacking off to, you know, faded 90s Polaroids of the cast of Friends or something with like cheese color covered fingers. Crap. Like, I've been doing Muay Thai, like, how fucking convenient. You probably couldn't kick a fucking door with more than like a pound of force, much less stupid idiot. It's just, and these guys, and I turned around, I said, hey, look, man, like, you know, I didn't turn around and bring up my background. You did, to try to validate your point because you knew that it was bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, I've ranked in Dragon Boat, which is a racing rowing, and I'm pretty fit, and I'm doing jiu-jitsu, and I'm doing Krav Maga, like proper Krav Maga, proper, where we do full contact and everything. And it's just, this is the kind of stuff that I don't have patience for. Oh, looks like we have a comment. Looks like we have a comment. Oh, English, I can't read good. Let's see, what do we have? Mia Perry. Or they say it's your opinion. A contradiction of a fact they don't like is downgraded to an opinion so that they don't have to suffer the pang of being wrong. Yes, yes. That is exactly the kind of shit that I'm talking about, and it's exactly the kind of shit that drives me nuts. I'm not trying to kind of get into this NIMBYism, like I said, before we even started, I apologize. I said, I know I'm going to sound like an old fart. I'm going to sound like some guy with like a pitchfork and saying, oh, I want those youngsters to get off my lawn. Those fuckers, Generation Z, all they do with their TikTok and their this, that, and the other thing, and I don't know what, it's not where it's just, I'd say that there's a war on common sense, but it seems like that war has already long since been gone. We have people that read a couple of articles and they go on and they never check their facts. They can't deconstruct an argument. And then they turn around and then you have to argue with these idiots, and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And they're all supremely confident too, right? They're all smug and smiley like they're going to educate you. And they have no idea. They have no idea what they're talking about. None. None. And they're always people that they've achieved nothing. They're almost always people that have achieved nothing. Well, I have a YouTube channel and I have this. Well, you know what? I have a fucking YouTube channel and I have a show on TV with 26 million viewers. You don't see me going out there acting like I'm king shit. But what I do expect is the same courtesy in return, right? I don't go into a store and say, hey, you know who I am? Well, I think you should basically sit down and suck my dick, figuratively and literally, to give me what I want because I'm primo, important, Tom, Dicky, Wiki, Sticky, Pricky. Yeah, I don't really buy that shit. And I don't feel like I should have to tolerate it from other people either, particularly with people that have a resume that's either half or a quarter that mine is. And you don't see me walking around with that kind of attitude. I don't get it. I really, really don't get it. And it drives me crazy. It takes a long time, and it takes a long time to get good at something. But there's lots of good stuff. I mean, there are some talented people that are doing cool stuff. Potato Jet, his video reviews are amusing. I find him fairly insightful. Louis Rossmann is one of my favorites. I think he's great, and he's a voice for common sense, in my opinion. And there's some really amazing, really talented bands, musicians, etc. out on YouTube, and some of the stuff is fantastic. And on top of that, there's people in my age group that are rearranging classic video game music for jazz. I mean, look up. Um, there was if any of you ever played Portal or Portal 2, well, Portal in this case. So Portal's still alive. It's the game. That's the song that's at the end of the game. And there's a big band. Yeah, look up Portal's Still Alive big band. And it's awesome. It sounds like a Sinatra with it's with a full big band orchestra. It's fantastic. And this stuff really would only be possible with YouTube. So it's funny because you get this really what I call this polar. The internet is really polar, and society and social media is really polar because you have uh, the, an engineer mother of a really good former friend of mine used to say that certain people were either really, really smart or really, really stupid, but there's no in between. And I would say that that's what the internet is. So on one hand, you get all these little twits out there, going on about nothing, and then basically trying to cancel celebrities or whatever. I mean, some people are legitimately not cool and deserve to go to jail. But you also have a lot of this court of public opinion, and there's innocent people that are just are basically having their careers destroyed because some fucker that met them at a party 20 years ago has decided to falsely accuse them of rape or whatever. And if somebody dares to turn around and actually say that, then, oh, well, you're supporting, you're a rapist and you're rapey and you must support rape victims. You can't have an intelligent conversation about anything with anybody anymore because they'll listen to these hot button words and then they'll just sit there and they'll, like, 10 years ago, people would shut them down and put them in a straitjacket and give them medication. Now they get a YouTube channel and millions of subscribers. And people listen to these morons. People listen to these morons on YouTube. And they give them money and they give them deals and they give them all this stuff. And it's unbelievable. They are actually given social and financial currency. So then they actually think that their bullshit is actually worth something and that they're contributing something and that they actually think that the garbage that they're peddling actually actually has it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And I should get off this topic or I'm going to go all night. It's just intelligent discourse conversation. It, I don't know. It just common sense has gone out the window. I mean, if you actually listen to any of Dr. Peterson's lectures, they are quite logical. Louis Rossmann, also a very logical guy. He's blunt, like me. He gets to the quick. He's not, the guy doesn't fuck around, but he's right. So, on a completely different note, other than, yeah, you want to know how old I am? You want to see old school here? I'll give you fucking old school. This is old school, right? We don't have any of these cool cell phones. This came out when I was 4 years old. Now, all you kids out there, now, I'm sure a lot of you will be watching this and go, ha ha, I remember that. It's like, oh, well, you know what? My Game Boy Color was vintage, and my Game Boy Advance SP was vintage, and my Game Boy, my Game Boy whatever is vintage. My Game Boy 3DS first edition was vintage. That is not fucking vintage. That is not vintage. This is vintage. This is the one that started it all, kids. This came out in 1989, okay? I was 4 years old. You didn't have 400 fucking games on one thing that you could just go, you know what? I don't really feel like playing this. Good, I'm going to go to another one. You actually had a cartridge like this. See? Tetris. You want to play Tetris? Oh, it's easy to do on your phone. You just download Tetris off the Apple Store or the Play Store or whatever. But this one, if you want to play a game, you actually had to get off your fat ass and get the fucking cartridge and put it in. You actually had to buy the game one at a time. Can you believe this? See, here's a cartridge here. The light's kind of in the way here. There's a cartridge here. And there's contacts on it, right? These metal contacts. And then you actually had to get up and put it in the game, in the machine. And then you actually had a switch and you had to turn it on. And then if you wanted to play another game, you actually had to take this and take it out and put it in another game. It was awful. You couldn't sit on your ass and just pick another game. You actually had to get up and go and get a game and put it in. Like, you actually had to physically take the game and put it in. You actually had to get up. And on top of that, if you wanted another game, you actually had to go out to a store and buy another game. So you actually had to kind of finish the dinner that mom gave you before you could have dessert. You actually had to get up and have money. And if you wanted another game. And these games weren't cheap either. Like, they were like 40, 50 bucks. How much did you get on your fucking allowance when you were 10? I don't know about you, but I blew most of my allowance on putting quarters in the Street Fighter machine. I wasted my allowance. Here, just in case you were thinking that I was going on that I think that everybody's generation is stupid other than my own. Oh, my generation is plenty stupid. And I was plenty stupid. You know, I must have blown like hundreds of dollars worth of quarters. My mom used to give me quarters and say, "You can go and get yourself a drink or get yourself a snack or whatever for lunch or whatever at the school." What did I do? I'd put it all in the arcade. I'd put it all in the arcade. But I don't need any orange juice. I don't need any of that Minute Maid shit. I don't need nutrition or anything from the cafeteria. I'll just put it in the machine. I get enough sustenance from Guile's theme. What's that meme? Guile's theme goes with everything. And then somebody ended up doing a video, and it actually worked with everything. It was actually pretty funny. But yeah. Oh wow, lots of comments today. Oh yeah. Oh, Mia Perry. They addressed this in the movie Brittany Runs a Marathon, where the doctor is telling her that she needs to lose 50 pounds, and she's saying, "I think you missed the point of all those Dove commercials." Yeah, you know what? That was an awesome movie. I saw that. Brittany Runs a Marathon. It was a fantastic movie, and I highly recommend anybody that has any interest in it. Well, it's just a fun movie. But she does, and it's funny because she actually does wind up becoming a runner, and she does lose the weight. And she just does. And there's a scene in the movie where she goes out and she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna do one block," and she has a hard time doing that one block, but she does do it. She goes out and she does the one block and she sticks to it. See, that's all you need to start. You don't need to go out and go to a gym and and do all this crazy stuff right away. Just start. Just go out, go for a walk, go for a jog for a block. Doesn't have to be that long. And then I always say that the body, excuse me, I got the hiccups. I always say that the body's like a rubber band, and it really is. You'd be surprised that once you start going, how quickly you are able to really start seeing what your body is able to do, and you gradually get less tired and less tired and less tired, and you're not really going, "Oh, well, I have to get this kilometer or I have to get this goal." You're just going out and having a good time, and then you get on the scale like a couple of weeks later, and it's like, "Holy shit, I lost 3 pounds. I lost 5 pounds." Well, fuck, I wasn't even thinking about that. Well, if I can lose 5 pounds just going out and having a good time and not thinking about it, I wonder what else I might be able to do. And then you lose 10 and whatever. If you go out and go, "Oh man, I need to get on the scale and I'm not leaving the gym until I lose 10 pounds," I guarantee you that you will give up and then you'll be back to eating mallow bars by the case. You gotta focus on the point and not the match. But I absolutely agree with this. And and Mia said a few other things. We have a society that thinks that the answer to saying that beauty is thin is to change it up and say beauty is plus size when nobody seems to just be saying that healthy is beautiful. Yeah, I would agree with that. You don't have to be a size 0 to be healthy. There are thin people that are really, really not fit and quite ill, and then you can have people that are larger and just have a slow metabolism and are really quite fit. You just need to kind of take care of what you're putting in your body because you only get one, and this is something I think people forget. And it's like, "Oh well, I'm going to eat whatever I want and I'm going to have 28 beer every day and I'm beautiful just the way I am." Well, physically you might be, even if you're a little bigger, but that beauty isn't going to do you very good if you're sitting on the ICU with an IV. You know what I mean? Like, everything is about balance. Everything is about balance. But anyway, that was kind of my soapbox. But so how long was I going on about that? I'm sure I spent a lot of blathering. I probably don't want to know. I'm sure it'll tell me later on. Laugh my ass off. Yeah, I know. I tend to go on about this shit a lot. I don't know. I find people are just completely idiotic, and sometimes I feel I'm with George Carlin on this one. He used to say in one of his routines, "Here's a class of people that should be hit upside the head with a piece of heavy mining equipment." Yeah, it's pretty much pretty much where my head is with that. It's unbelievable. Well, if you managed to sit through all that, now I've got all these fancy graphics, which you might have seen yesterday. So please do subscribe. See that fancy red button? Well, it's not really a button. I don't really know what it is. I should know because I fucking made it. But anyway, regardless of what it is or isn't, it does say subscribe. And so I shall ask you to subscribe. And then I will ask you ad nauseum also to subscribe, and so on and so forth. So, yeah. So, yammering along. We're going to go and move our way along here. I still need to find a better way to deal with this because I got cables everywhere. There's cables everywhere. I got to figure out a better way of doing this crap. Where do I pick my... There's cables. All these cables are everywhere. This is so stupid. I gotta get something. I don't even know what cable this is. There, just cut everything caught. Come on, down you go. Down you go. There you go. I can ride a bike again. Will this even go over here? Will this go? Will this go? Will this go? Will it? Will it? Will it? Will it? Will it? Haha! Cool. Did it pull the camera? That's the other big question. No, it actually stayed in the right position. All right, so one of these days, and I know I keep teasing this. I keep teasing this a lot. I'm actually going to open this up so that I can actually see myself. Yeah, so one of the things that I really kind of want to, one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go into some actual synthesizer programming, and I'm going to show how to do it at some point. But right now I'm just going to goof around the presets because I keep having shit that I have to deal with, and but yeah. But I really like. Whoa. Working. Actually, I should set this up so I can see comments, because apparently somebody left a comment and I couldn't see. So if any of you are here and you want to comment, I want to hear what you have to say, because there were a couple of surprise comments that I didn't catch, and it happened at the end of the stream. It started with X, and now I can't go back and see it for some reason. So if you're here, I did see that that you said that you'd subscribe, so thank you. I always enjoy having new subscribers, and if you comment during the broadcast, I will absolutely thank you and give you a shout out in the broadcast, unless you tell me not to, as long as I get a subscription. So I don't really know what I want to do with this. It's kind of Pet Shop Boys-ish. Whoa, it's kind of rush. Kind of Cirque du Soleil-ish. Yeah. This is an organ. Oh, that's kind of a cool kind of 80s. Just make sure that the kind of tangerine dreamish. That's sort of modern classical. That's sort of modern classical, if that makes any sense. It's just what I think. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like a new age crossover, something like that, I guess. This is sort of a. I guess it's supposed to be like a lounge organ. Oh, we're back to. It's kind of nice. Jamal Wheat says the Raccoons reboot is coming in 2021. Yeah, there's Although this doesn't really have anything to do with this live stream, Jamal's kind of referencing my previous career, which is kind of interesting. I was actually originally trained as a classical animator, and I used to work in Ottawa, and I worked at the same studio that the Raccoons was made. If you're American, you may or may not know the Raccoons. It had a limited run on the Disney Channel, the original incarnation of the Disney Channel, but it was a cartoon that was very, very popular in the United Kingdom, and it was very popular in Germany, and it was very popular in Canada in the 80s. So people in my age group, sort of late 20s, early to late 30s, would know this show, and I worked with a lot of the original crew and cast on it, and I had some involvement with some of the new Raccoons marketing and the show and that, which I don't really now, but this is a show that's actually been in development for quite some time. Kevin Gillis was the creator of the original show, and he and I are both from the Ottawa Valley, and we both worked, actually cut our teeth at the same studio. So we both used to work at, we both cut our teeth working, doing television at what was then CJOH TV in Ottawa. As I worked in live action first, and then I went into animation later. And then the original Raccoon show, there were 4 specials. Like, so there was the Christmas Raccoons, and then there was the Raccoons on Ice, and then there was Lost Star, and then there was Let's Dance, which was kind of a clip show. And then the show went to full series in 1985, and it was done in English and French, and the show was animated entirely in Ottawa in Canada, and went into syndication and went on to, and it was, as I say, it was very, very, very popular back in the day. There were toys, there were stickers, there were, every kid had them. It was very, very popular. And then I worked at, so the Raccoons Studios, the Raccoons was kind of interesting because it's technically not the same studio, but really it is. So animation in Ottawa kind of goes back a ways. So that goes back depending on how far you want to go. If you don't really want to go as far back as the sort of experimental National Film Board of Canada stuff, it at least goes back to Crawley Films, the industrial films, and then they were doing service work for Videocraft for Rankin Bass, did the 60s, the Land of Oz. It was, I'm trying to remember but any boomer would probably know the show because it was popular in the U.S. too. The Land of Oz is a funny, or the Land of Oz is a funny, funny place, and everyone is a funny, funny place, and the streets are paved with gold, and no one ever grows old, and so on and so on. That was animated. That was all animated at Crawley Films in Ottawa. And my old boss, Ron Black, he was my old boss at Amberwood, which is so basically what happened is the first generation was basically Crawley Films, and then they had a little animation division, their live action division, and they were doing industrials, and then they did the Land of Oz service stuff, and then the next iteration of that became Atkinson Film Arts, and then Atkinson Film Arts did the original Raccoon specials and the first couple of seasons, or the first season at least, of the Raccoons. And then Kevin Gillis and the Wiseman family set up Hinton Animation Studios, specifically originally to service the Raccoon show once CBC ordered it into full series, Sheldon Wiseman. And Sheldon was actually my boss when I was there. So then when the Raccoons sort of finished up, it remained, and then Hinton Animation Studios kind of evolved into Lacewood Animation Studios. So they did the For Better or For Worse, like the Best is Present, like the For Better or For Worse specials, and that, and then they did the Teddy Bear Picnic specials and a bunch of other interesting stuff. And then after they were Lacewood, then they became Amberwood, and that's where I was. So I worked on the shows I worked on. They were well animated, but from a story point of view, they were kind of crappy. I mean, I worked on The Secret World of Benjamin Bear, which was a sort of a reboot of the Teddy Bear Picnic specials of the 80s. And then I worked on Zero Man with Leslie Nielsen. And that was, again, animated really well, but the writing of the show, just there were too many cooks in the kitchen. So what ended up happening is you got something that was originally hysterically funny, and it got diluted and diluted and diluted. And then I worked a little bit on Katie and Orby, which was a really little kiddie program for, I think it was for Treehouse. And then I worked on Hose Hounds, which sounds like a really bad porno. Is there such a thing as a good porno? But it was actually a children's show about a bunch of dogs that were firefighters, and it was okay. It was fine. It ran on the Family Channel as well, on the Disney Channel. So that was sort of the history of. And then my one of my other bosses there, Corey Morrison and Rick Morrison, when they left, so Amberwood had such a huge library of animation shows that they had the rights to, that they ended up just kind of moving into distribution primarily. So they kind of they didn't shut down their animation studio, but then they just kind of moved into posing, and they did some 3D stuff, but they pretty much sourced everything out. And then my boss, Corey Morrison and Rick Morrison, they ended up leaving once Amberwood just kind of stuck with distribution. And then they started an animation studio in Ottawa called Big Jump Productions. And then they've actually done very well for themselves. And they are the ones that were doing the Raccoons reboot. And the Raccoons reboot actually has been in the works a really long time, and it's had a bunch of false starts. And I won't get into too much of it because there's a lot of politics involved in television. I mean, that's just normal. And, so there's a lot of stuff that I'm privy to that the public isn't and will remain that way. I will let Kevin Gillis determine what information he feels is appropriate to release to the public. And I respect Kevin's judgment on what he feels is the best for his show, so I'm not going to say anything about what I know. But I will say this, speaking both as a professional, classically trained animator and as a fan of the Raccoons growing up, I do think that the reboot is actually pretty good. I think that there's a lot going for it. At first, when I saw the character designs, I'll be honest, I was kind of like, I don't know what I think of this. But then I ended up seeing some animation tests, and it actually works pretty well. It is it's a style that I wasn't 100% convinced was going to work for full animation, or was going to work for television animation, because one of the hallmarks of the original Paul Shibley character designs are these kind of hatched lines, this hatching in the mouth. And generally you don't do hatching in animation because it takes longer to draw, right? So when you have a lot of television animation that has to go out, that affects what we would call in the animation world pencil mileage, right? So the longer it takes to draw, the less you can crank out and the more expensive it becomes. So, but when I saw the animation test, I thought that it actually worked really well. So I think if Kevin does eventually get this special out and done and completed, I think it's actually going to work really well. So assuming he can get the remainder of the money that he needs to finish the series and do it the way he wants to, so that there's hopefully not too much intervention from various financial stakeholders that are not really creative and story people like Kevin is, I think it's going to be a really awesome show. And I think the reason that the original Raccoon series worked as well as it did is because you let the animation people be animation people. You didn't really have a whole lot of intervention on the executive level with people saying, you know, I need to do this and you need to do that, and you get all these stupid notes. And then what happens is you're running around as the production company, running around like an idiot with your like a chicken with your head cut off, trying to please all these stupid notes. And then inevitably what happens is you're trying to make it appeal to everybody, which ends up making it appeal to nobody. And then you end up with a generic show that has no spark, has no bite, there's nothing memorable about it, and then it gets canned within a season or 2 or 3 if you're lucky. So, but as with anything else, there's lots of people that get up 9 to 5 and go to jobs they hate because they need the paycheck, and the same thing can happen with television, right? You need money to make TV shows, and if you can't sell enough advertising, if 80% of your funding comes from a broadcaster that wants you to put a rubber chicken in it that eats chocolate from a toilet seat, well, you know what? It doesn't really matter if it's a Thunderbirds reboot. You got to put it in there because it's their long green. But guess what? If you're the director, you're still getting blamed for it. So I've actually been online a good. I've been online. Holy shit! I've been online a little while now. I think I've been online almost an hour and a half, and I have a movie that I need to finish. So I think I'm actually gonna cut that off for now, and I'm gonna switch to the other camera. Ooh, hello, other camera. Hello, other camera. Other camera's brighter. So yeah, I think I'm gonna. I think I'm gonna kind of leave it at that for now, and as I say, I'll get a little smoother on this as time goes on and I get used to this and I get it so that I can kind of hold it, because right now I'm sort of holding it like a Game Boy. So as always, thank you so much for tuning in, and please do subscribe as per the little red line down there. And I hope you have a great night, and I will be back most likely tomorrow night or Sunday night. Have a good one. Bye now.